The past week marked 149 years since the birth of Constantin Brâncuși, and Romania celebrated with cultural events and talk shows dedicated to his legacy, reinforcing his status as a national treasure. But while many commemorate his genius, we must also ask, is he overrated? Of course, Constantin Brâncuși is one of the greatest sculptors of the 20th century, but he is often acknowledged as the father of modern sculpture and the pioneer of abstraction. But are all of these titles entirely deserved? As a person working in the field of art and culture, this documentary presents my critical examination of Brâncuși's legacy, offering well-founded arguments which challenge the notion of his unchallenged greatness, particularly within the perception of the Romanian public. Additionally, I will emphasize that this perspective is not isolated, but part of a broader, ongoing debate within the art world. This is an interpretation based on solid arguments, and different viewpoints are just as valuable, provided they are equally well supported by evidence and a critical analysis. The early 20th century was a period of radical artistic transformation. The sudden boom of non-academic art movements challenged classical artistic norms, promoting abstraction and conceptual approaches which would redefine Western art. While Brâncuși is often credited with breaking away from academic realism and pioneering abstraction in sculpture, a closer examination of the period reveals that he was far from alone in this endeavor. Art historians such as Rosalind Krauss has also critiqued the tendency to isolate Brâncuși as an entirely original figure, arguing instead that his work was deeply embedded in pre-existing artistic trends. Brâncuși's rise to fame was not just about artistic genius, it was also about being in the right place at the right time. In the early 20th century, Paris was the epicenter of avant-garde movements. Artists from all over the world were flocking to the French capital, eager to break away from academic traditions and experiment with new forms of expression. Colonialism, which expanded worldwide from the 15th century to the mid-20th century, remained active in the early 19th century. Napoleon's military campaigns, for instance, played a key role in fueling the Western public's increasing fascination with the ancient and traditional art of non-European cultures. Napoleon's systematic looting of artifacts from Egypt, the Middle East, and other regions played a crucial role in shaping this interest. His efforts led to the transfer of numerous cultural treasures to France, many of which were displayed in the Louvre Museum, which had been transformed into a central storehouse for these adopted works. This influx of artifacts not only fueled European curiosity about the artistic heritage of more exotic regions, but also contributed to the broader Orientalist movement, which romanticized and reinterpreted non-Western cultures through a European lens. During Brâncuși's time, artistic circles in Europe were increasingly captivated by so-called primitive art, a term used at the time to describe the artistic traditions of non-Western cultures. African masks, oceanic carvings, and ancient artifacts were being collected and displayed in major European museums, such as the Musée d'Ethnographie du Trocadéro in Paris. This exposure profoundly influenced avant-garde artists, contributing to the emergence of movements like Cubism and Primitivism, which sought to break away from the classical artistic conventions by embracing the raw, abstract qualities of non-European art. Romania, at that time, aligned with this broader zeitgeist as it remained a relatively young nation, largely unexplored by the Western public. Its geographical position at the crossroads of Europe and the Orient contributed to its perception as an exotic land, a cultural bridge between East and West. This sense of unfamiliarity extended to its rich yet largely undiscovered traditional art and artifacts, which had not yet been fully integrated into the European artistic discourse. The country's intricate folk crafts, along with its artifacts and influences from Byzantine and Ottoman artistic traditions, added to its mystique, making it a subject of curiosity among Western artists and intellectuals who were seeking fresh sources of inspiration beyond the established canon. While the influence of Brâncuși on modern sculpture is undeniable, Romania's current glorification of him often appears to be an attempt to claim ownership over his success, despite the fact that he left the country early in his career to seek recognition abroad. Brâncuși's first major commission in Romania, the bust of Carol Davila, played a crucial role in his early disappointment with the country's art establishment. The commissioners were dissatisfied with certain aspects of the work and refused to pay him the second half of the agreed amount. The first installment had been given before he started, but Brâncuși had counted on receiving the full payment to fund his journey from Bucharest to Paris. This financial setback, combined with the lack of appreciation for his work, reinforced his frustrations with Romania's artistic circles. It ultimately became one of the reasons he sought recognition abroad, where his modernist approach was very well received during his lifetime. Romania has few internationally recognized figures in modern art. Brâncuși's success in Paris and the United States offers a rare example of a Romanian artist being celebrated on the world stage, making him a convenient symbol of national cultural prestige. Many Romanians see Brâncuși's work as deeply rooted in local folk traditions, particularly in the simplicity and symbolism found in traditional Romanian wood carving. This connection allows him to be framed as an artist who carried Romanian heritage into modernity. By the early 20th century, many sculptors had already begun to challenge traditional representation. Auguste Rodin, for instance, had long been distorting human anatomy for expressive and dynamic effect, moving away from strict realism. Brâncuși briefly worked in Rodin's studio, but soon distanced himself, famously stating, "Nothing grows in the shadow of great trees." While Rodin revolutionized sculpture with expressive, dynamic forms and intricate surfaces, Brâncuși sought purity and simplification, reducing forms to their essence. Despite this contrast, Brâncuși's early works show a clearer Rodin influence before he fully embraced abstraction. Even within Brâncuși's own time, other sculptors explored similar paths. Jacob Epstein and Henri Godier-Breșca, for example, were also reducing forms to their essence, influenced by the same growing fascination with so-called primitive art. Jacob Epstein was a British-American sculptor known for his bold, often controversial works which challenged traditional artistic norms. A pioneer of modern sculpture in Britain, he drew inspiration from non-Western art, primitivism, and direct carving techniques. His public sculptures, such as the rock drill, reflected a fascination with industrialization and the human form, while his portrait busts captured psychological depth. Henri Godier-Breșca was a French sculptor and draftsman associated with the Vortices movement in early 20th century Britain. Despite his short life, he left a significant mark on modern sculpture, emphasizing dynamic forms and direct carving techniques influenced by African and Cycladic art. His work showcased a bold simplification of form and a fusion of primitivism with modernist abstraction. Godier-Breșca's career was tragically cut short when he was killed in World War I, but his innovative approach continued to inspire later sculptures. Medardo Rosso was another key figure experimenting with abstraction before Brâncuși gained recognition. His impressionistic sculptures, characterized by their fragmented and fluid forms, dissolved the boundaries between figure and space, anticipating modernist concerns. Brâncuși's impact on modern art is undeniable, yet does that mean his legacy should remain beyond critique? His reputation as a groundbreaking innovator may be exaggerated, his artistic language more rooted in existing traditions rather than entirely original, and his body of work more iterative than revolutionary. While his sculptures have captivated audiences for over a century, the tendency to place him on an untouchable pedestal risks overshadowing the broader artistic context in which he operated. As Romania marks 149 years since his birth, with exhibitions and tributes, perhaps it is also time for a more nuanced re-evaluation of his legacy, not as the singular father of modern sculpture, but as one of many voices shaping the evolution of 20th century art. Art history is not static, and neither should be our perception of those who define it. Critical reflection, open debate, and fresh perspectives are essential in understanding the true impact of artists, and Brâncuși should be no exception. Thank you for watching.